This is super cool. We've been planning this for a long time. Um, we wanted to set about to find out what were the human resource, I'll call it the people practices and policies of America's fastest growing companies. Also, what were the practices of companies who are struggling to grow? So here's what we did. We put together a survey. It was 8 sections from recruiting to hiring all the way through post-employment. In each of those sections, we asked 5 questions around what were their practices, HR practices in these areas, right? From there, we asked the final question, describe last year. Were you a fast growth company, a growth company? Were you flat, or was it, unfortunately, a down year? And then we compared all these results. So we can definitively say, based on over 2,000 small businesses who responded to our survey, we can definitively say these are the HR practices of companies who are growing the fastest, and these are the HR practices of people who are struggling to grow. And I think, spoiler alert here, those businesses with the best, I'd say, best in class HR practices, no surprise, are the fastest growing companies. And those companies struggling to grow, now, of course, there's a million reasons: marketplace, products, innovation. I mean, there's a million reasons why a company might struggle. But when you compare the results of over 2,000 business to 2,065 to be exact, the data is really clear. The fastest growing companies have great HR practices. And forget the word HR, they have great people practices to attract and develop and retain the best talent. Mary, any comments you want to have before we kind of jump in and we start talking about the first 2 topics of this survey, which is recruiting and hiring?
I'm just as excited as you are. First of all, to have that many people respond is amazing. And, I'm asked all the time, what's the compliance on this issue or that issue? And I love to be able to add best practices. And here we have this amazing document to help employers. It's a cheat sheet to
Right.
people practices, as you said. So I'm really excited to go through this with you. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot about HR that is kind of black and white. There's legalistic compliance things. There's also a lot that's kind of, dare I say, the soft stuff. Maybe the most important
Yeah,
stuff is the soft stuff. But here's some
100%.
really hard hitting, concrete data that tells us if you want to be a fast growing company, this is what the leaders do. And I think it really creates just a blueprint for what small businesses should follow for HR. Okay, let's go talk about the first one. Really interesting finding here. So 82% of the fast growth companies use job boards to post new openings compared to just 55%, barely over half of businesses that experienced a down year. So 82% versus 55%. Clearly the fastest growing companies use job boards. That sounds so simple, but why is that such a big deal, and why do you think there's such a gap there, Mary?
I kind of can audibly hear the audience going, "What are you talking about recruiting and hiring?" And leaning forward in their chairs because
Right.
this is just so important right now. And you're right, this is kind of like a moment, but we'll add to this as we have in the past. It's not just posting it. What are you posting on that job board? What job boards are you using to post, right? So these organizations, those fast growing organizations that are using the job boards, are using them consistently. They're using them even when they don't have an opening, right? So a lot of us are just posting a job. I fill it with Mike Vanoy, the great Mike Vanoy, as my, marketing director. And then I pull that job down. And that's probably not the best practice. So there's a lot of information around these answers from these fast growing. They're posting on the job boards in a consistent manner, using employment brands, making the application process very easy for the candidates, right? So they're not losing people who are like, "Ooh, I'm not going to spend an hour filling out all this paperwork before I even have the job." So I love the statistic, even though you're right, it's kind of a dull moment. where it's like, yeah, of course I have to post on job boards, but how are you posting on job boards? What job boards? When? And how does that application come into your organization?
Well, I just think about my own life as an entrepreneur and businesses that I'm currently involved in. Some of the job boards are expensive, right? And so,
Yes.
if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business, and I'm just working my tail off, grinding it, trying to make a living and trying to grow my business, I can understand the hesitancy in putting up the money. You mean I'm going to pay X amount for resumes of people that might not even show up to the interview? That's
Right.
maddening, and it feels very expensive. But you know what's really, really, really expensive? Hiring the wrong people that don't help you grow your business, right?
That's right.
And this one just screams at me, and I'm kind of with you. It feels like, well, okay, thank you, Captain Obvious. Yeah, I can hire more people by using job boards.
Yeah.
The correlation is not hiring more people, because presumably these companies who had quote unquote a down year, they presumably filled the jobs with people. But did they fill them with the right people? Were those people as productive as they could have been? When you average out across over 2,000 companies, when 88% that are fast growing use the job boards, 55% don't, it seems the data is clear that spending the money on the job board is worth it, because they're getting better talent, they're getting better employees that are simply more, presumably, they're more productive, right? That's why.
Right, and they're filling jobs, period, right? We can't make widgets or serve food without the right amount of employees. So if it takes a little bit of an investment to fill those jobs, to take our business to the next level, we need to do that. But what we're hearing is, I can't do it. I can't find the people. Well, are you using the job boards and using them appropriately?